my grades have gone down though, I've been making more money. I made like 17,000 last month. The biggest piece of advice I have is to just start, because if you don't start, you'll never ever get there.
Think of yourself as a suicide negotiator.
If you follow the steps to get the buried treasure, you're gonna get it.
Russell, what's up? Thanks for joining us. I've seen you around the Twitter spaces recently. You've been kind of popping off, and dude, you're only 16 years old. Done some amazing things, but would love to hear about you, man, and take it away.
Yeah, so let me introduce myself a little bit more formally. So I'm Russell. Like you said, I'm 16 years old. I just turned 16 on April 22nd. So, I mean, it kind of went fast, almost a month ago, but I'm a high ticket salesman. That's what he probably sees popping up on Twitter. I posted a YouTube video. I'm around. I've been in high ticket sales for a little bit over 3 months now. So it started off just DM setting, which if you guys aren't clear onto what it is, you're literally texting people. And you're setting appointments on Instagram. It was the easiest way I ever made money. And I really hate saying that making money online is easy, because it isn't. But this was honestly, I mean, it felt easy to me. And then from there, within the month, I transitioned to closing. I actually took my first call on March 17th. My first 3 calls, I closed 2 of them, and it's just been up from there. So April, I was full-time closing, and now May's been really, really awesome for me.
Sweet, brother. Yeah, dude, I've seen some crazy posts from you. I think making, like $21,000 this month, crushed 17,000 last month. How does that feel making that much money at, 16? That's wild.
So it's an interesting question. I'm gonna give you kind of an interesting answer, because most people would be like, feels awesome, I got all this money, I'm making all this money. For me, nothing really changes in my life when I make more money or less money. I'm still living at home. I'm still going to school. I'm still going to be for the next few years. I don't plan on really doing anything. We can go into that a little bit later. But for me, I mean, like you said, yeah. So last month I made like 17,000. This month it is May 21st, and I passed 20 something thousand. I have a company that's been open for like 3 days. We just passed 10K cash collected. So, I mean, it's cool. It's awesome to be able to say these numbers and be like, oh, I'm 16 making all this money. But to be honest, the way that it feels like there's way bigger things to come in my mind. And I'm not really just enjoying it. I think it's nice. It's nice to make some money. That's not the biggest goal for me. So, I mean, for me, it's okay. I mean, how do you feel when you were making, I don't know when you started, if you could let me know that, but how did it feel kind of when you started making money with this?
Yeah, so just to give some context too, so I started when I was, 14. I actually had a YouTube channel back at the time. So it was like Destiny, like Call of Duty videos. And I started just making videos, dude. Like it was fun. I really enjoyed it.
It's awesome.
Made probably about 500 videos over the span of like 2 years. I'd wake up at like 4 a.m.
Wow.
Whenever there was like a new DLC is kind of what they called it in the games. But I wake up, make videos. Literally all of my classes all day were just me checking and refreshing YouTube stats. I've seen you post some of like the stats over on Twitter, and it's cool to like see the numbers growing. But I was just so into the actual like stats of like everything, right? Of how it worked.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my first, turn into the whole online world. Started making videos. Kids at my school started making fun of me for those videos too. So I'm curious what other friends at school think of your whole just you getting into this space. But did that and then transitioned into social media marketing, right? And now we're running the Modern SDR where we're teaching sales actually. But how does it look with like your friends like in high school and people there?
I mean, I don't really get made fun of. On my
Yeah.
Instagram, I started posting like guru content with the editing. And then, I mean, like, I kind of make fun of myself more than anybody can make fun of me. So it's really no problem. My friends are chill. Everybody's fine with it. I go to a somewhat small school. The word gets around everywhere. Everybody sees it. I'm 100%, but it's not really a crazy big deal to anybody. Something that you said, like, really kind of struck a nerve with me that kind of brought something up I haven't remembered in a while. So, you kind of refreshing the tabs all the time, looking at your analytics. I used to have a clothing brand over the summer. That was not the first thing I did, but one of the things I did. That was over a year ago I started it. So I started it like last April or May. And I did that all the way over the summer. I made some money in the beginning, and then I lost all of it because I invested in a bunch of clothes and nothing sold. It's a hard business to scale. I know a lot of people do really well, but I remember literally just sitting on my Shopify and just refreshing, going over all the stats. When I started running ads, it's the same thing. When I finally hit on TikTok, it's the same thing, looking at ads over and over. So that's something that I really kind of relate with. And I'm not sure if that's something, I mean, I haven't really heard of a ton of other people hyper analyzing statistics. I'm sure people do it, but that's really interesting. And then going back to the question, I mean, my friends asked me to teach them, to be quite honest. Like, I don't get made fun of. It's all chill. I have friends literally asking me to teach them kind of every single day, especially when I did that podcast with Mason a few weeks ago and it got posted places and people started texting me all the time on Instagram. A lot of kids, probably like 10, 15 kids that I know personally asked me to teach them. So has that ever happened to you?
No, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting shift because when I feel like when you start out in the online space, people doubt you, right? They maybe hold things against you, and for you, it seems like your
Yeah.
growth is pretty quick, right? So that might be different. But in the beginning, when maybe the clothing store like failed,
Mhm.
right? Like that obviously sucks. So then you're kind of doubting yourself. But then people will also doubt you. But then when you start to see success, that's when
Yeah.
they're like, oh shit, this kid's made it, right? I want to reach out. How can I be successful like him? Um,
Yeah, that actually reminded me of something. So there was like a slight bit because you're right. I came up somewhat fast, it only being over a little bit over 3 months. So I only remember this on a couple situations. When I used to DM set, I was in school and I was on my phone like all day answering messages. Kids didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't really telling them what I was doing, but that's the only situation I can realize like kids making fun of me, kids being like, "What are you doing on your phone all the time? Why are you texting people on Instagram?" Completely get that. Back with the clothing brand, I feel like people like wouldn't directly say anything to me, but nobody really made fun of me to my face. So that wasn't really a crazy thing. The first thing I did was drop shipping. I feel like the first thing everybody does is drop shipping, or a lot of people do. And that was last December.
okay.
So I had like these, and they're still like I see them over there, like next to my bed, like those little things where you grip them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. It's like
I
strengthening your
sold
forearms,
those.
right? It's like
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that was
I sold those, man, and it was all organic. I didn't really have any money to invest on it, so it was all organic, and I got no return. I got no sales on those switched products, got no sales, switched products, got no sales. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I mean, I can't, it's so far ago, but I remember kids saying things. Whether it's indirectly, like somebody's always going to be saying stuff about you, and it's a big thing to me at this point to just not really care,
yeah.
right? I mean, I don't really care what people say about any of it.
No, that's cool. So, kind of give me some background. I know we connected yesterday or the day before over on FaceTime real quick, but I'd love to hear kind of your background growing up. Like, were your parents entrepreneurial? Like, how did you kind of even get introduced to the
Interesting.
space? What does it look like growing up?
So it's an interesting question. I've always kind of wanted to work for myself. My father does work for himself. So that's kind of like from an early age, I guess that's what put it in my mind. Um, man, I mean, I've always been, and I mean, I'm not gonna say like, oh, I'm some super genius. I'm kind of like stupid compared to the people who are around me, but I always used to be somewhat smart. In elementary school, I used to sell like little like paper airplanes and shit, stuff like that. So it's always kind of been around. Middle school, I had a business where I was selling like tech decks. Now I'm like all remembering all this stuff now. This is stuff I haven't really thought about in a while. Um, man, I've always done like little stuff, but it was never anything serious. The first time I really tried something seriously was last year, which was freshman year in high school, and that was when I drop shipped. And I think the way that that probably came up, to be honest, was most likely off of just social media, seeing other people doing it. Um, but it's always been around, which is really interesting. I'm curious as for you, you started the YouTube channel, but before then, was it like always a thing in your mind? You wanted to work for yourself, you wanted to do stuff for yourself?
Yeah. So I mean, my parents both like started businesses. They started companies. Then my dad actually went. He worked for someone else for a little bit. Absolutely hated that, and now he's running his own
Mm.
company again with my mom. But I think from the beginning when I was growing up, it was always like start your own thing. Get into something like sales, right? Start your own business. So that was kind of ingrained in me from the beginning. Um, but I feel like even nowadays, like it's almost glamorized. So I'm curious your
Yeah.
thoughts with that. Like, do you feel like everyone should, start their own thing, or do you feel like some people should, continue maybe just in a normal job? Like, What are your thoughts on that? Because I know social media glamorizes it, but it's not all just like, easy money, right?
Yeah, it's not all me sitting in front of my computer making thousands of dollars. There's days where I'll sit in front of my computer, take a couple calls. I remember not recently, but a little bit over a month ago, I had like two or three calls. Something had just happened that was really shitty. Hop on a call. It's like 5 minutes. The guy's like, how much does it cost? How much does it cost? Over and over. Terrible call. Get on another call. Doesn't go well. And I actually like really remember this. I got out of the house. It was like late at night, like 8, and I ran a mile, like really, really fast. I was pissed off. Um, I guess it's completely glamorized. Online money in general, not just sales. I know we're both in sales, but like all this stuff is really like everybody looks up to it, and I don't think everybody should do it. I don't think it's for everybody. I don't think everybody's cut out for it. I don't think everybody will put in the work. I've seen 95% of this space, more than that, probably fails. It's I feel like almost everybody around me, and I guess I probably feel this way because of where I am on social media, the people I'm connected with, but I feel like everybody's starting, and I feel like almost nobody's actually being successful with it. So I definitely think no, not everybody's cut out for it. Sometimes I even think it would be better for like if I didn't even start it, but I mean, I guess those kind
Why
of
do you think
doubts
that?
are.
Yeah, that's interesting. You bring that up. That yeah, that you feel like sometimes you shouldn't do it. So like, why do you feel that way?
Well, I mean, I've been had questions brought up to me all the time, especially, I mean, last time I was talking to Mason, he was like, "Do you ever have any desire to just be a regular 16-year-old?" And it was an interesting question because at face value, I'm like, well, I mean, I feel like I am a regular 16-year-old, and I feel like I am, by the way. I mean, that's the thing. I play a couple sports. I'm pretty decent in
You're wearing that hat too, so.
Not a lot of people would wear this. Big confidence.
No, I dig it. I dig it.
But I feel like sometimes it's a ton of responsibility. And I feel like if you can handle that, and I've done a good job so far at handling that, it's fine. But when you have thing after thing, there's controversies and there's problems. One thing, like this is my name out there, right? Like it's Russell Sage, it's all over my social media. One thing goes wrong, next couple years, I'm done. So I feel like at times it would be better if I was out of it and I was anonymous. I mean, that's what some people do. But I mean, yeah, I feel like if you're cut out for it, it's fine because you have to kind of do everything. Everything has to be calculated. I used to have a problem where I used to make like decisions extremely fast, extremely rash, emotional. And I feel like if you're going to be doing that, and when I was doing that, it's not, nothing's ever going to work. So, I mean, something that I'm going to stress myself, especially over the next year or so, is like being very smart about what I do, staying out of problems, being nice, being respectful, losing a complete ego. I used to have an ego when I had, this is interesting. When I was making no money, I had an ego. And then when I started making money, it went away. And that's something that I really have to focus on, keeping that away. I mean, if you can do that, if you can keep yourself out of problems, keep yourself out of controversies, I feel like it's fine. But at a younger age, you're gonna make stupider decisions. And that's something I see in myself every single day.
Sure.
And like I said, like one wrong thing screws up my name, my brand for a while, if not
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah. No, that's huge, and it's awesome you've realized that at such a young age with that. That's great, man. So I'm curious when you're on sales calls. I'm not sure kind of like the industry that you guys serve or like the age of like your prospects. What happens when you hop on with a prospect that's like 45 years old, has like three kids that are all older than you, right? How do calls go, and like what does that look like?
It's a really great question because I started out when I was closing, when I was setting in an offer that was targeted like I say young kids. When I say young kids, I mean like 18, 19-year-olds. Because now I'm in an offer that's real estate. Or I'm in an offer that's real estate. I'm also in other offers, but we're targeting real estate agencies for lead generation. So these people, I've gotten on calls with 65-year-old retired guys with three kids, like you're saying, they all have full families. People have brought it up to me. I used to be in a setup. I mean, now it's a little bit cleaner. I just kind of switched it up, but I used to be like facing my bed and there was like flags above me. And there's a guy who brought it up. He's like, "Hey, buddy, take those flags down. Who do you think you are?" I was like, "Bro, I mean, the people always call me buddy. That's something that happens." I feel like it's always important to build rapport on your calls, but at a younger age, it's really important because if I have no respect from the beginning and no authority, I'm just gonna get pushed around, shoved around. And that'll show up specifically at the end of the call if I don't do that. So there's a couple different situations that happened. I used to lie about my age. I don't do it so much anymore. I feel like I'm articulate enough to, or at least most of the time, I'm articulate enough to avoid the question. But I mean, I can recall one scenario on a real estate call, 30-something-year-old woman asked me how old I am midway to the end of the call. I say 18, and she thought I was like 20, 21. She couldn't believe it. So I don't know. It's interesting. It comes up just as much as you think it will. It's you never get better at handling it.
Do you feel like that limits you from like the potential that you could have, or do you feel like being younger actually gives you more of an advantage? Like obviously there's some times where the prospects will call you out, but like do you feel like it's more of an advantage or more of a, holds you back?
It's tough. I can't imagine. Is there any situation where you could think it could push me forward?
I think, well, it's interesting because so on our team we have closers in their like almost 30s now. So we have two guys on our team that are almost 30, have families. We have another kid, Savage. I think he's like 20 years old right now. So it's definitely different. But I feel like when you're younger, right, you have to have your frameworks more dialed, right? You have to like everything in a sales call is a very set process, right? There's certain ways to handle objections. There's certain ways to run through discovery. There's certain ways you have to frame the call. And I feel like if you're younger, you have to be more dialed in with the frameworks. But because of that, I almost feel sometimes younger closers have that advantage because they're more willing to learn. They're just starting out, but they've really honed in on the actual frameworks, and that's why they're successful. Because I feel like as you get older, you may feel like you're almost too good. Hey, I've had so much experience. It's okay if I go off the frame. But I feel like that's at least what I've seen. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I mean, I feel like that's absolutely right. Um, I don't have that kind of sense where I'm like, I feel like it's more skill set based. That's how I've always felt in this. I mean, there's for that real estate offer I'm on right now, they told me something when I got on it. They said, and I'll call out, I don't know if I should call out the program that they said. So they
Yeah.
said that I might want to say it. I'm gonna say it. You can do whatever you want with it. They said that 40 people interviewed or around 40 people, mostly from if you've ever heard of them. And they said that first of all, it was me who was 15 at the time, by the way, and like 40 people from and this is what they said. They said they didn't like any of them, and they ended up accepting a 15-year-old over most of them. I'm sure they were all older. I'm almost certain they were all older. It doesn't have to do with I'm just saying what they were saying. But I feel like I've always been in the headspace where it has to do with skill set. There can be a 30-year-old, but if he's not closing any calls, why wouldn't you take the 15-year-old who's closing more calls? Right? It's depending on whatever job you're doing, you can put it any which way you want. I'm trying to think of another analogy I can do it with. Say, say there's two business owners. One of them's 12. Let's really reduce it here. Say one of them's 12 and he's doing 100K a month. One of them's 45. They've been doing it at the same time, but the 45-year-old's doing like $7,000 a month. It
Sure.
doesn't matter what the age is. It matters the skill set. I'm not saying that's a real situation, but it could be. So that's kind of the way that I've always been is I don't care whether I'm 15. I don't care whether I'm 16. I do what you say and I focus in on every little thing so that I can be just as good, but way better than those people is my goal. So
That's
yeah,
huge.
I feel like it probably has helped me in the long run.
That's cool. So what do you do in your spare time right now? Like obviously you make money,
Oh
you have
man,
school, like you do shit. Like what do you do for fun? Like or like do you do anything else besides work right now, or what does it look like?
spare time's hard to come by. I mean, yeah, it's hard to come by, but I play a couple sports at school, right? I used to play baseball. Right now I'm playing tennis.
Okay.
So that takes up like, so my school ends at like 2, that ends at like 5. So that's
Okay.
like a little bit there. I think it's really important to always be exercising, always be going to the gym, of course. If you're sitting in front of your computer, I don't care if you're making $100,000 a month. I would think you're kind of a loser if you're not going to the gym, you're not being outside, you're not doing things. So I think that's somewhat important. Now, I'll be honest, like if I took a look at my calendar after that 5, I don't know how much time is open. Um, I have meetings after meetings after meetings. I'm training people over and over. So I really don't have time. I first of all, so I have homework at school. It doesn't get done until I'm in school. My grades, this is something I've noticed that you might find interesting. As my grades have gone down, And I'm not saying like I'm a straight D student. I still have like I think like a B plus or something. I have like an 89 GPA. As my grades have gone down though, because it used to be like a 93, 94, I've been making more money and I've been like making more progress in this. So that's to the point where in my spare time, I'm certainly not doing schoolwork, to be honest. I do it in school. I keep it there. I'm not doing it in my spare time. I am most of the time taking calls or training people, stuff to do with sales. And then if I do ever have spare time, I feel like I'm studying, to be honest. And I mean studying sales. So it's it's interesting. It's most of what I do right now, to be honest.
No, that's huge. Where do you want to be, next 6 months from now, next 2 years or
Okay.
so?
Yeah, interesting question. Um, so I started a business a few days ago, like 3 or 4 days ago, with a business partner who lives a couple minutes from me, both doing sales. We're trying to bring that. And so we started like 2 days ago. It's already at 10K. But we're like locking it in. So it's a thing where we're training people as well, just like you are, but we are like set 10 students. That's all we're taking. So we only take 10 students, and then we're like gonna raise the price over time, focus on fulfillment. I want this business in 6 months to be at least at like 80, 90K a month. And
Awesome.
I'm gonna be honest, I think it's somewhat possible at least, and it'll happen. It'll happen. And as far as school, I mean, I have parents who are locked in on going to college. My brother went to college. My brother's out of college now, just graduated. My school is very hyper focused on college. I'm around a lot of people who believe that college is the way to go. Me personally, I think that it depends on your situation. If you come from a background where you don't have the money to pay for college, you have to take out loans, you have to have a ton of debt, it's completely useless in my opinion. Go to trade school or something, stay out of school, try and do something like this because at that point, you're digging yourself a hole that you're never going to be able to get out of. Now, in my situation, I have parents who can pay for my college if I wanted to go. So at that point, I believe that it's more of like if they want me to go to college, I will get good out of it. I'm not saying I'm gonna have straight A's in my classes because I'm not. And if it ever took away from what I'm doing right now, what I'm doing on online on business, I feel like I would drop out. I feel like I would if it was taking away too much. High school, I mean, I have a 16-year-old friend who makes way more money than me. He lives in like Houston. He's dropping out at the end of the year and moving to Arizona like full time. I don't know how his parents let him do it. I have no clue. He's moving to live with a couple closers with who hang out like Jeremy Minor or something.
Yeah.
And there's no way I would drop out of school at least until like senior year. And I know what people do is finish it online when they drop out. So I feel like that's something I could do. I have friends who dropped out of school. I have a friend who dropped out of school at 15 and he's like 20 something now. Crazy money. He's doing awesome. And he's let me know like one thing, if you drop out early and you don't get your what is it called? College diploma or high school diploma, your car insurance is messed up. Your rent's gonna go up. There's a bunch of stuff that's gonna be cooked. So for me, I would finish high school most likely. If I don't finish it in person, I'll finish it online. College is an iffy one. I have to give it way more thought. There's people who love college. There's people who hate college. There's people who say go to college. People who say don't go to college. What's interesting, and I'll ask you too, if you see this in kind of your situation, most of the people that I see, not just closing, but running businesses online, do college for a year and drop out. That's what
Yeah.
I've seen.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you bring it up. So I actually graduated from Vanderbilt. It's pretty good school. Went on financial
Yeah,
aid. I think they're ranked like 14 in the nation right now. Like really great school, right? So
really
I,
good
I
school.
was I was pretty smart. I'm Hawaiian, so that definitely helps with the whole like Title IX thing, to get accepted. And I honestly had like almost imposter syndrome because I thought it was just because I was Hawaiian, right? Looking back, I don't think that was actually the case, um, but for me, I feel like college and the network it brought was actually pretty big, right? Like if
Yeah,
you look it up, the top or like 4% of Vanderbilt is their wealth is like top 0.1% in all of America, right? And then top 25, like the top 25% of the school, they're all in the 1%, right? So all of the big families that went there, right? It's all old money, and it taught me a lot about how wealthy people think, how they interact, right? And ultimately, the connections I made through there will always provide a backup if things whatever hit the fan with this business or anything else. So I'm
Yeah.
very thankful for it, right? If it was the full $80,000 that we had to pay for Vanderbilt, probably wouldn't have gone there, right? But because of the financial aid, because of the connections there, I personally think college was worth it. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think if at the end of the day you're going into a ton of student debt, like you said, it may not make sense. But if you have the opportunity, the college is good for connections. I think it's worth it personally. Yeah.
So let me ask, like, in my situation where I won't get into a school like that, I'll get into, a decent school, one of the middle ranges. I won't go to a terrible school. I won't go to a great school. I'll go to a decent school. I have parents who will help me pay for my school. I will, I definitely like the network. So everybody that I've spoken to has like highlighted that, how the networking is so good. Which is what's interesting. Nobody talks about how much they learn. Nobody talks about how much money they're making because they went to this school. I guess some people maybe do, but most of the time it's the network that it brings. So in my situation, even like being 16, I got 2 more years left in high school, but what do you think would be the right move for me?
I think it depends on what you want to like actually accomplish. Like, what's the reason for going to college? Like, if you went, what would your reasoning be?
Having a tight circle who has similar mindsets, similar goals as I do.
Is that the only reason?
That's pretty much, I mean, I feel like meeting those connections in person, right now it's hard, but once I'm out of high school, I'll be able to go to all these people who I know. So I feel like the main reason for me, to be honest, would to go to college would be meeting a lot of people, having a circle, having fun, to be honest. Um,
And that's the thing. I think that's important that you brought up having fun because, like, for me, even in college, it was really lonely. Like, it was super lonely, and it's not something I talk about much, like on social media. Um, but it was super lonely because I didn't feel understood. There was probably only like three or four other people that like did entrepreneurship, right? I think one guy dropped out. He started like a hedge fund, pretty much, and then there was a few other people that kind of popped off after school. Um, I think as long as you know the reasoning behind it, I think it's good. But if your goal is just to get around a circle that you like, and let's say you're making 80,000 a month coming out of high school, I honestly wouldn't go to college if I were you. Like, if that's the only reason, like to have a circle, because I'm sure you're gonna make that circle outside of school, right? It's gonna be through Twitter, it's gonna be through Instagram, right? It's gonna be through all these people you meet. That's my thought.
yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I agree with that.
So you're in sales now. You've had, I mean, it's still like month two or three, right? What's like the biggest learning experience you've had so far from that? And then for people that are maybe scared to start sales or to start getting into this space, what's like a piece of advice for them, especially if they're young,
I feel
right?
like, yeah, those two things are going to go hand in hand for me. The biggest thing I learned is that things will only get done if you get out there and make it get done. And I think it's the same thing for people who are looking to get into it. $1 million isn't going to fall into your hands. Even a couple $1,000 is going to, maybe with this government it will, but I mean, still. So you have to go out there and actually do it. I know people who have been in sales for months and months and months, and they're starting to switch to closing now, but I had to kind of help them and tell them, listen, like, you can do this now. Why are you setting for 5 months when, I mean, closing's where the money is. Closing's better. Closing, you're going to build more skills. If you're sitting on your phone DMing people all day, cool. I mean, you're making money. It's pretty easy work, but you're not building a ton of skills. So for me personally, when I got into closing, it's because the closer on our team went on a cruise, and I told the owner, like, hey, instead of letting some of these calls fall through, just let me take a couple calls. And it ended up being decent. And I didn't put it in my mind like, oh, closing, like, this is gonna be impossible. This is so hard. I put it in my mind like, it's just a conversation. Why don't I just get out there and try it? So the biggest piece of advice I have is to just start. Because if you don't start, you'll never ever get there. And that's the problem. Like, I tell people now, if they ever pay me to join a mentorship, or I've ever seen them pay somebody to join a mentorship, whatever they do, they're ahead of 99% of people, is what I tell them immediately. Because the 1% of people are the ones who are investing, who are wanting to get started, who are putting themselves out there. And the 99% who want to do it are never ever going to start. So whether you're 14, 15, 16, I don't care how old you're, 20, 25, 30, just start. That's my biggest piece of advice.
That's huge. Why do you feel like people don't start? Why do you feel like they hit limiting beliefs and they can't push past it?
I feel like the reason they don't start is a mixture of a few things. Um, Fear is obviously going to be the biggest one. Fear of either change, fear of failure. I don't know what it is, but it's a mixture of a ton of different fears. The reason people can't push past these limitations is, I mean, first of all, it's human nature to be afraid of wanting to take risks. It's instilled in you to not be wanting to take risks, not be wanting, say you have $2,000 and somebody's trying to charge you 1,800, you're not going to want to do that. You're not going to be comfortable. People live in a little comfortable circle inside themselves. And if you can't break that, you're never like, I hate to say it, like, you're never going to make anything happen if you stay inside your bubble of comfortability. I honestly feel like for some people who can't push past those limitations, they don't let anybody help them push past those limitations. For example, getting on a call with somebody who wants to try and close you on a deal. For me, when I close somebody, it's less about, oh, I'm making $300 from closing somebody. It's more about I'm trying to help them to the point where I've had calls where in the discovery phase, I feel like there's no way I can help this person. And I tell them, like, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you with this. I recommend you do this, this, and this. So it's more for me like if I get into objection handling, somebody's extremely fearful, somebody's very uncertain, and I can tell in the discovery phase, like I can help these guys. Our program will help them. I feel like it's a big thing being able to convince them to do that, being able to make them realize that we can help them, making them have certainty. The four certainties, have you ever heard? I'm sure you have. So it's like certainty in me, certainty in themselves, certainty in their sales process, and I think certainty in, one other thing. But I mean, instilling that in them is going to push them forward. So people who can't even do that, can't even get on a call, can't even let somebody help them, is going to be a big thing. Yeah, but I think it's mostly fear and uncertainty and always wanting to stay in your little comfortable bubble.
Yeah, no, that's huge, man. So I'm going to take this a different path. What's your goal with Twitter? I know you've been growing pretty fast there. I thought you were making all your tweets, but I got a message last night that you have some assistance there. But talk on that and what's the ultimate goal with Twitter?
Did I tell you I had a ghostwriter? Or did somebody else?
Somebody messaged me. I'm not
Ooh.
sure. It might have been your copywriter. No, it was you. Well, it was you, but it might have been someone in your Twitter account. I'm not sure.
Oh, wow. I have no idea. So I have a copywriter. I make about half my tweets. So for everybody listening, this is how you're going to tell whether it's my tweet or whether it's Dave, who's my copywriter, who does awesome,
Shout out
by the
Dave.
way.
Shout out
Whether
Dave.
it's him tweeting for my face or whether it's me tweeting. This is the way that you can figure out. If it is starts with a capital letter, most of the time it's going to be Dave, to be quite honest. So most of my tweets, I'd say probably about 65, 70% of them are Dave because I don't have a ton of time to go out there and tweet it. However, I get on the phone with Dave a couple times a week and I tell him the type of stuff I'm thinking. Any stories. Stories are awesome for Twitter. If you guys looking to grow, stories are going to grow you the most. Not just throwing out engagement posts and trying to farm engagement. Actually having stories is going to push you a lot farther. So we get on the phone a couple times a week. So it's almost like me tweeting, but he's kind of writing it for me. Now, if you guys want to tell, is this Russell who's actually tweeting? It's lowercase letters. I love typing in lowercase letters. This is a little outreach tip for you guys. Anybody who wants to do some outreach and get eyes on you, I mean, it's worked for me. I don't know. It doesn't really work when people text me, but I love typing in lowercase letters because it kind of jumps out to people because most people don't. So, I mean, when you see a tweet, it's lowercase letters, it's gonna be me.
Yeah, that's cool. So the most of the growth right now has come from stories. I know you kind of collaborate with other people. Like, do you feel like most of the growth comes from that, or is it more just like having a personal story that resonates? Like, what's the kicker there?
Feel like it comes from personal stories, or what's the other option?
Or from like collabs with people?
Personal stories for sure. So, the only like collaborations I have is with a couple different people. The biggest one is obviously when I went on the podcast with Mason, which was awesome. Probably brought me a lot, mainly followers on my Instagram instead of my Twitter. But um, before I even went on that, I mean, I had like almost 2,000 followers, 1,800. So mainly it comes from the personal story because there isn't a lot of 16-year-olds who have been in something for 3 months, making money, making progress. So a lot of my posts that are kind of getting repetitive at this point, but the ones that are like 3 months ago, all this, now, all this, or like I'm 16 and it's my third month doing this, all my stats.
Yeah.
Those do awesome because people like hearing that kind of stuff. People don't like hearing the same nonsense that they hear on Twitter. Value posts are important to kind of put in your Twitter for, just fluffing it up because every post can't be a flex post, can't be an authority post, can't be a story, but those are the ones that are going to do the best.
That's cool. Do you subscribe to a lot of the money Twitter stuff. Like, would you say you're more in money Twitter right now, or have you kind of like made your own niche for yourself, you feel?
I don't know. That's a question. I scroll on Twitter a little bit, but I really like, to be honest, I'm not on there a ton. I know that
Good.
if you
Yeah.
guys see me replying to a lot of people, it's not
Yeah.
me. Dave responds to a lot of posts. I'll be honest with you guys.
So,
I'm pretty sure Dave responds to a lot of money Twitter people. Now, in my opinion, it's all a load of like it's mostly garbage. I don't like people coming out there. I just worked 18 hours today, took a cold shower, ran 7 miles. I'm about to
yeah.
do a not sleep at all and then do this again the next day. I hate that stuff. I feel like it's a joke and it doesn't really accomplish anything. You're pulling yourself way farther behind by doing that than pushing yourself forward. So, I mean, I feel like most of it's a bunch of nonsense.
No, that's really interesting. That's funny you touch on the routine. I feel like a lot of people, like you see all these posts. Oh, I did 4 hours of meditation today. I did a sauna. Then I did, ice bath, cold shower, all this stuff. Then I got to work, right? And that's the reason I'm successful. But I honestly don't really prescribe to that. I kind of just wake up when I want. Like there's one meeting now at 10 a.m. every Monday that I have to be on. But other than that, there's not really any meetings. There's no really set times. It's just like do the work. So like, do you have a routine? Do you follow anything? Or is it just, hey, you show up, take the call, make money?
So, I mean, for me, it's different, obviously, because I'm in school. So I don't know if you're talking about like morning routine, going to sleep
I'm saying
but
more the
I,
routine for like making income. Like sure, of course you have to go to
oh,
school and stuff like that. But yeah.
so I'd like to say I have one. I don't really make, in my experience, it doesn't make a difference. I used to do something where before a call, I would kind of like clear my mind, meditate for a few minutes, kind of set
Yeah.
my goals in my head and then do the call. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Or no?
Yeah. No, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I used to do that a couple times. Um, there's literally how it would go. I would sit in front of my computer just because I had call after call after call after call, sit in front of the computer, close my eyes for a few minutes, do a little meditation, put my goals in my mind, and then get on the call. Now, what I noticed is it didn't really make a crazy difference, to be quite honest. Whether I'm taking call after call after call or I'm doing that, I don't think it made a big difference. I think it's important to like take walks, be outside,
Sure.
relax a little bit, but not meditate before you get on a sales call. I don't think it makes a big difference. Same with the people who say, I woke up, I did a cold shower, I ran 5 miles, I went to school, got home, worked out for 2 hours, got on my computer, did this for 30 minutes, looked outside for 20 minutes. I don't think it's right. Do what you're gonna do. Do what you have to accomplish it throughout the day. Scheduling's fine, but having a stupid little routine is not.
Sure. Cool. Who would you say are like the biggest mentors you've had so far? Like people you learned from, like yeah, and the biggest takeaways
Biggest takeaways, as in,
from mentors or whoever. Yeah.
so I have one guy specifically who's very underground, whose name is Andres. He's more of the thing, like you said, like old money. He posts himself around, but he's not really out there a crazy amount. Um, I've been working with him for over a month and he kind of changed my whole sales process. I was closing calls, but I wasn't doing any of the right stuff before I started working with him. I learned the most from him, specifically about sales. I've been in all different kinds of communities, I've blah, 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 but the main thing I learned about joining communities and having group coaching, group stuff like that is that the best thing is the community. And then everything else doesn't really help you that much. So I feel like having a one-on-one was awesome. So with Andres, the biggest takeaways from him is kind of keeping yourself out of problems, keeping yourself out of controversies, which has come up, but I won't talk about it. So keeping yourself out of stuff like that, having good ethics, good backgrounds, not being in it because, oh, I want to make $500 on this call, but like I said, like I want to help this person. I think I can help them, that stuff. He's helped a lot with that. I think that's really the biggest thing for me. But I also have like other people, for example, in my life who are, older than me, blah, blah, blah. They doing this stuff. They're kind of where I want to go soon. And I feel like that's a big thing too. So there's a ton. Andres would be the main one, not just for sales, but for everything.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, I actually had a mentor, Abdul. He ran a 250 person sales floor at AT&T for a long time.
Wow.
He's based out in Dubai now, but I've paid him for a few mentor sessions, and I actually met him when I was out in Dubai. Um, his biggest takeaway was that when you're on a sales call, think of yourself as a suicide negotiator, right? That prospect, they're standing on a ledge, right? They're looking off a bridge, and they're about to jump off to their death, right? And essentially, if that prospect's on the sales call with you and they leave the call without paying, right, and enrolling into that product or service, you're essentially letting them jump off that bridge down to their death, because most likely they're going to be stuck in the same comfort zone, the same situation that they've been in for the past 2 months, 2 years, however long. And it's your duty to listen to them properly, ask the right questions, and ultimately get them to come back off that bridge, right, and enroll in your product service. But that was a huge takeaway I took from him, and I think that's been really pivotal in like my sales process, but also like our teams as well. So yeah.
I feel like that's an awesome way to think. I mean, I've thought kind of the same way, but I've never kind of made it out as like they're jumping off a bridge.
Yeah.
But I'll start thinking about that 100%. I think I'll close more deals because that's an awesome way to think about taking calls. That's really cool that you said that. Do a lot of people say that, or is that mainly Abdul?
So that was Abdul. Like he's taught me that, and then I've kind of actually brought this up a lot to our sales guys. But yeah, I mean that was like the biggest
Awesome.
takeaway, and that was, I mean, he was training 250 people, every single day, right? And
Yeah.
obviously there's managers and everything like that. But cool, man. So I know you recently launched your own one-on-one. What does that kind of look like? Like, is it just sales mentorship? Like, kind of walk me through it. That's awesome.
I mean, yeah. So a little bit later into last month, I was doing straight one-on-one. I met up
Cool.
with a buddy. He's been in sales for a little bit longer than me. A kid named Orson lives in kind of my hometown, but like a few minutes away from me, which is kind of crazy. So we did like a two-on-one kind of thing. And instead of thinking like kind of these other programs, scale, 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 bring as many people in, collect as much cash, my goal with it and his goal with it as well is literally to fulfill. Like the biggest thing in my entire mind is fulfillment. And I tell the prospects this on the call, I tell them after, like, the way that we charge is on a monthly basis, but my goal is that they don't need us after a month. If they do need us after a month, I probably won't even charge them until they're making money. Because if I work with somebody and I feel like I failed them, I feel like they're not fulfilled, it'll kill, first of all, me, and it'll kill the program too. If we bring in 50 people and 25 of them don't make any money, that's terrible. If we bring in 10 people and we make sure, this is what we're doing, by the way, we bring in 10 people, make sure that they all get results, push them away, and bring in more 10 people over and over and over. I feel like that's a better business model than bringing in hundreds of people at a time in a giant group community, scaling as
Sure.
fast as you can, and failing in the long run because you can't coach these people, especially in a group, which is way harder than one-on-one.
That's interesting. Do you feel like everyone can get results though from a coaching program? Like, let's say it's like the best fucking coaching program in the world. Like, do you actually feel like everyone can get results though?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't care what coaching program you're in. It can be mine. I'll tell you guys right now, I don't care what coaching program you join. Your your results lay on your own hands. Like you're killing yourself here if you join a program and you think 2 weeks I'm gonna make $30,000. It's about the work that you put in. It's about the mindset that you take on. It's about they can give you all the information you want. They can give you the vehicle, but you have to actually take that and make something of it. So I don't care what program you join. I'm actually like a big advocate for joining something, joining a mentorship, having a mentor, but it doesn't matter unless you're accountable, unless you're actually doing what you're told, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about that?
No, I totally agree. It's interesting. Like we have the data, and like I think it's like 15% of the people actually like start the program, right? Because there's so much dopamine and just like of making that purchase, and by making that purchase, right? There's been numerous studies on this, but just by making the purchase, there's enough dopamine for people to think that they've actually solved the problem, even though solving the problem actually happens after, of course, the payment's made and you actually start doing in the work. Um, like I've even bought programs in the past where I literally pay it. I check out like 2 videos and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. Like that's all I wanted to go through. So it's very interesting. Um, yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. But cool, man. I know you got a call here coming up pretty shortly. What's like best parting advice for anyone looking to get started kind of in the online space, maybe any other lessons you've had? Um, what's the last remark that you
Okay.
want to go through? Yeah.
So if you're 15, if you're 16, if you're 20, 25, 30, this is like the overarching advice. If you want to break into this space, I'm 16 and I did it. He's 24, I believe,
Yeah. 24.
right?
Yeah.
And he did it. if you're looking to break into the online money kind of niche, you're looking to break into the space, the best piece of advice I can give you is to, I mean, it's very simple. Follow the steps and make it happen. Like, I don't have to overcomplicate it. People get caught on, first of all, starting, which I talked about earlier in the podcast if you watch the whole thing. People get caught on the first step, which is starting. But after you start, I mean, we just talked about purchasing a program and not moving forward. There's a list of steps that you have to follow. And if you join something, which I believe is the first step, they'll give you those steps. If you follow the steps, it's kind of like buried treasure. If you follow the steps to get the big X on the map and get the buried treasure, you're going to get it. I feel like you are. I feel like there's almost no way you won't. So join something, do whatever your first step is for you. Follow the steps the entire way. If you do something for long enough, there's a 100% success rate. I truly believe that. So, I mean, that's my biggest piece of advice. Do something and don't quit until you make it work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that was like the biggest thing you touched on is like the speed to implementation. And I'll actually bring this up because I was thinking about this earlier. You mentioned that before, even like a year or two ago, you felt like you would almost act too fast. But I also feel like acting fast is what like that's what most people never even are able to do, right? So what's the balance between acting fast enough, but then also not making rash decisions?
Yeah, it's tough because I've heard that, by the way, from a couple different people saying that one, the reason that I act fast is the reason I'm making money right now. The reason I'm doing all right is because I've acted fast and I've moved faster and faster. But then I've also heard from a lot of people, and it's became a serious problem of like, don't start a coaching program. Don't start trying to help people. I feel like the only reason I'm doing it is because I have done it like a little bit ago and I was getting people results. But I mean, dude, people are telling me that the reason that I'm doing good is because of my speed from thing to thing to thing. And then the same people are telling me, don't start a coaching program, stay down, stay in the trenches for a little bit, which I think both things are good advice. So it's really, really interesting. It's all about like synthesization. I think that's a word. People can give me a ton of different advice. People can teach me a ton of different things. Putting that together is where innovation comes from. So I'm fast moving from thing to thing to thing. I keep momentum because I don't want to plateau. So I keep my momentum. I go from thing to thing to thing, fast, fast, fast. However, you can kind of slow down the moment. So when I say fast, I mean like I take things day by day, but also I can sit down for an hour and I can think through decisions while also acting fast. I mean, do you kind I really agree with that right there.
So I feel like we're very similar, and this is also one of the reasons why I wanted to speak with you on this video here. But I feel like we are similar in a way because of the speed of implementation. But I've found a lot of times, like I almost have this habit of breaking things, right? Have you heard of shiny object syndrome? Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when something's working, right? Like right now with the business, like my sole role right now is to run one meeting a week and just content. Like that's literally all I do in the business now, right? We have managers in place, we have sales guys that are killers, right? We have a marketing team, content department, everything's in place. But every time that I'm not actively doing something, I almost feel useless, right? I feel like, like I need to be doing something new all the time. So then I almost break those things that are already working really well, right? So have you kind of seen that as well, where you feel like you're almost breaking it because it's working so well? Or how does that kind of play in? And like, when do you know you're working on the right thing?
I feel like it's hard to, I mean, first of all, for me personally, I know I'm working on the right thing when people who have already made it, in a sense, like they're already successful with it, are telling me I'm doing the right thing. Because I don't feel like, at least when I was doing these kinds of day-to-day skills, and which I still am, that I have the knowledge to be like, I'm doing the right thing. For me, it's when these other people who are obviously way more successful than me are telling me, like, you're doing the right things, you're on the right track, keep moving. I've heard of shiny object syndrome a lot, moving from item to item, trying to do like you're doing, for example, for me, it would be like if I'm starting out with drop shipping over a year ago, and then in 2 days I switch to a different business model. 2 days I switch to a different business model. I feel like part of the reason I'm successful, part of the reason I'm not successful, part of the reason I'm making any money closing at all is because I've done it over and over every single day. It's part of my schedule. Every day is doing this, taking calls, first of all, which is like kind of the game, but also practicing, buying mentorships. I've spent a ton of money. This is a big thing. I've spent most of my money on different mentorships, different programs. So, I mean, It's a big thing that if you stay doing something, and I feel like I like even just said it, but if you stay doing something for a long enough time, there's no way you're gonna fail. So I kind of even forgot the question because I talk so much, but if you stay doing something for a long enough time, it's not gonna fail. So
Yeah,
you can go from thing to thing. I try and stay at least in the same niche, which is what I'm doing right now, but I
that's
mean
huge.
that's kind of where I'm at.
Um, I'll touch on this too, and if you got to run, that's all good. But I know you mentioned too,
No problem. Right.
spent most of the money. Like, are you starting to save up now, or I think I saw it on a different podcast. You mentioned on even on that big month last month, you spent most of it. So I guess why do you feel like you're wanting to spend that money to invest more into mentorships? And then when are you gonna like start saving or investing, or what does that look like?
I don't know. I feel like I can't see for the foreseeable future saving a lot of money.
Yeah.
When I say saving a lot of money, I say like I'm not obviously gonna go under like I see a $10 in my bank account. Like I have enough money if something ever happens. But for example, I know what you heard. I made like 17,000 last month. I spent like 13 to 15,000. So it got reinvested all last month. This month, more money's coming in. What if I spend the same amount? Right. So say this month I make 25,000 and I still spend 15,000. And the next month I make 50,000 and I still spend 15,000. People say that like kind of your expenses are gonna go up as you're making more money, and I think that's true. But if I can kind of keep it at a steady level of the amount I'm spending, and then I just make more and more and more from that, I feel like that'll be a really, really good place to be. I've always been in the mindset, and this might be stupid. It really might be stupid. I mean that. But I've always been in the mindset where instead of saving all this money, make money, spend money, make more money, spend money, make more money, spend money. Instead of make money, save, make money, save. I've always kind of been in that space.
So where is most of that money getting allocated? I know you mentioned like mentorships. I know you mentioned you like bought the camera, but like where do you feel like that money would go this month, for example? Like what's the things you're trying to learn?
This month it's also mentorships. I spent like $4,000 like 3 days ago on another
Sick.
mentor, but this time it's for scaling companies, not even in the way that people like Ben Bader are doing it, or people like that who come into a company and scale it. The reason I'm learning it is so that I can scale my own companies and do things like that. If I ever do need to scale other companies, I want to learn how to do that as well. It's kind of the wave right now that people are doing, but it's that's 4,000 this month. Another couple thousand is renewing mentorships from past months. It's all on a monthly basis. The
Cool.
camera you brought up was a big purchase. I redid my setup like less than a month ago, and that was a big purchase, over $3,000 in Amazon. So this month mainly mentorships. Next month it'll probably be more advertising if we decide to run ads. I'm kind of veering toward like an organic thing, but we might
Cool.
run ads for something. It'll be into that. um I first for the foreseeable future I see it mostly in mentorships.
No, that's awesome. Well, cool, man. That's I appreciate you coming on. I think it was
Of
cool to
course.
hear your perspective. I'm really excited to keep watching the journey. So that'll be sick. Where can people find you moving forward? Or I know you just kind of started YouTube too, but where can people find you?
So people can find me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I have a TikTok, but it's kind of like AI optimized right now. I might start actually moving into it, but it's always gonna be Russell underscore Sage 22, no matter where I am. And there's two L's. I really hate when people mess it up, and people always mess it up. It's two L's. Um, yeah, I'm gonna definitely move into TikTok. I recorded a video. I don't want to take us down a tangent right now. Whatever. I did like kind of the style where I just recorded a video and then posted it, but now it's like, you know what Opus AI is?
Yeah, I told you about
It's
Opus
like
two
that
days
where
ago.
where this guy.
I told you about
You
Opus.
did?
Yeah, that was me.
I did that like 2 days ago. So now it takes my YouTube and it clips them up and it just posts them at a random time. So I've been just doing that. That's
Fire.
funny.
Well, cool, brother. Any parting remarks? Anything else you want to go through?
No, I think it was awesome. I really appreciate all the advice that you gave me. That kind of stuff, especially a lot of the stuff that you said, like for you guys watching, like if you watch this whole thing, the stuff that he's saying is really, really good information that me personally, I can recall a couple things right now that I will absolutely implement, and I promise you that I'll start doing better.
What were
So
those
it was really
things? I'm curious. I'm curious on the takeaways.
I love the thing about somebody's trying to commit suicide and you have to keep them from getting off the call. I love that frame of mind. I feel like if I instill that in myself, like, bro, why are you letting somebody off the call if they're gonna jump off a bridge? So that specifically, I really, really love that. I know for a fact, like as soon as we get off the call, I'm gonna be writing that down. I'm gonna be taking that. I'm gonna be telling people that. I'm gonna be spreading that. I'm gonna be using that.
Well, sweet brother. I appreciate you hopping on. Links to Russell's socials will be in the description down below. And dude, appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Of course, man. I appreciate it.